This is Lipedema Podcast, Living with Lipedema. Here's your host, Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah, the host of Lipedema, where I share my personal journey with lipedema as well as sharing stories of other lippy sisters. This is Lipedema Awareness Month, and I'm so excited to have Pattie Cornute with Lipedema Fitness joining us today to share her story. Welcome, Pattie.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I am super excited that you're here. I know your triathlon's like 2 days as of this recording. So I know you're crazy busy and I'm super appreciative of you being on. Are you getting pumped about this weekend?
Nervous. This is when natural race anxiety kind of kicks in, and yeah, all that.
I know we'll dive more into that, but I cannot wait to join you next year for that during your 10-year anniversary. That'll be super exciting.
Really excited.
Yeah. So for those that are listening that don't know who Pattie is, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I am Pattie. I am the founder of a support group called Lipedema Fitness, and I was diagnosed with lipedema stage 3 in 2007. And at the time, the advice that we were kind of given back then was that diet and exercise were not going to do anything for the lipedema nodules. And in fact, they feared that, doing the exercise would make it worse, would exacerbate the symptoms, make us swell more, a bunch of things that when you first get diagnosed, the last thing you want is to get worse, because it's usually tied in with something happening. Like for me, it was after my daughter was born. I had a C-section in the hospital, and it was almost overnight that my legs just blew up. And so the idea that made my legs worse really had me fearing that, so the stuff I was used to doing and being very active could possibly make me worse. And out of fear, I stopped doing, like, I was at the gym literally the day before I gave birth to my daughter.
Yeah.
Because that was just, you get done work and you go there and you just, ride the treadmill or ride the bike or walk the treadmill, ride the bike. I would take all kinds of classes, boxing classes, just anything that looked fun and interesting. And, before I even found out about it, nothing that I did physically seemed to have me change my body's shape. And that was always kind of confusing to me. And I would ask my doctor repeatedly, I don't understand what's going on. I don't eat poorly. I'm constantly working out. And she was like, I'm in the same gym as you. And when I get there, you're there. And when I leave, you're still there. So I know. And she would proceed to test me for everything, thyroid, kidneys, anything I could come to her and say, well, what about this? She would go ahead and test me. And it would always come back, nope, because we're usually typically healthy outside of lipedema. So that was my big introduction. And I listened to the advice of, we could make ourselves worse, and stopped doing what I was doing. I did pick up all the things they did say to do, like manual lymphatic drainage and complete decongestive therapy, and, elevate my legs and wear my compression, and all the things that they were telling us would be helpful, I would do. And I took Reiki courses. I became a Reiki master, trying to think of other ways I could help my body heal if I wasn't going to be able to be putting that energy into, my traditional movements and stuff. And it wasn't until 2013 I was progressing the whole time. And I got to the point where I couldn't really stand well. I couldn't walk to the end of my driveway. And my husband was training, he's a CrossFit instructor and a martial artist, and he was training his MMA fighters in CrossFit. I'm like, what's the workout of the day? And that's really where everything changed for me, because I qualified it because, of course, he asked me why I wanted to know. And I said, for me, the biggest fear at that time was I was going to fall. Where, our legs are very heavy. We get off balance easily. And I had no body strength because I wasn't doing all the stuff my body was used to doing. And I couldn't even get on the floor to be able to try to get off the floor. That's at the state I was in when I was asking him what we could do. And without a hitch, he said, great, we could do that. And we started pulling cushions off the couch onto the floor so that because kneeling was incredibly painful.
Right.
And I would use more of my upper body on like the arm of the chair to, gradually find higher and higher locations on the couch to be able to stand up from. And it was excruciating. People kind of see me now. I've been doing this for over a decade. And they think like I'm just really strong or whatever, but I've been doing it for that long, and I've built up the core strength and the ability to do more with my body than, somebody who's not able to do that. So when they see me kneeling, they're like, but I can't kneel like that. I'm like, when I started, I couldn't kneel. And I really had to learn ways around it. And for me, it was such an important, it's not to say it's not important for everybody, but my whole goal was I will figure out how I can get down and up as safely as possible. So in the event that something does happen and I fall, I won't need to call the ambulance to come get me. That was like one of my biggest fears is if my husband wasn't home, how the heck would I get my body up by myself?
Yeah. I've done that.
So.
I have fallen off of the hammock in the yard and went, how am I going to get up by myself? Because I'm not sure if you do, but I have, not great knees either. And so then it just makes it extra hard to get up. And it took me a while to get up, but that's why my husband's always like, let's do strength training to get you stronger. Cause I can relate to your story so much about fear of falling, not being able to get down on the floor, being super healthy. I mean, everything that you've said, I can relate to it 100%. So I do have a question on like the fat pads of your knees. A lot of women with lipedema have those fat pads right below your knees. How is that? To me, that's the most painful part for me, getting down on the floor. Is that the same for you, or how do you navigate that?
It's interesting. I think with all of the kneeling and the floor work that I've done over the past decade, that I've kind of kept those at bay. Like mine don't bother me like they did when I first started training. So I don't know if the pressure and the continually getting down and up off the floor as much as I do, kind of wore those or massage those or, whatever, to the point where I don't really have them right under my knees. Gotcha. I have them on the inside of my thigh by my knee, and that area does bother me. And that's one of the most sensitive parts on me, is that inner, but I don't kneel on that. I'm more in the front. And when I first started, I was always doing it on mats. We have where we train indoors has mats on the floor anyways. And then they would have stack of mats that I could use. And we really started with the highest stack we could and kind of just went down as I got able to go lower and lower. Well, eventually we kind of donated those mats to somebody's, starting up the other martial arts school. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I don't have my mats anymore. So the option was the floor. Yeah. So I think, and I would use the shin. I would try to, disperse the weight and kind of do it more on my shin than my knee area. And it was just micro changing and figuring out what I could do. Now, I don't want to go be on my knees and, sit there for 10 minutes either. So, as I'm doing it, I'm mindful, and, it's very much about form and technique and upper body strength, and utilizing, more of the weight on my arms than, that I'm trying to kneel on or something.
Yeah. My husband is an OT, and at the school, the students practice, they have a huge mat that's a table. So it's up off the ground. I'm like, can we please just buy one of those for our living room? It'll take up the whole living room, but I'm fine with it. Just so you don't have to get down on the knee. I think that's the hardest part, is the getting down. It's not being down there working out. It's just the getting up and down. Yeah. So if somebody, go ahead.
My husband last year for Christmas got me a massage table.
Nice. I love it. Brownie points.
Yep. Well, he does. I always say, look, I want a like the plyo boxes. I want one of those for Mother's Day. I want, a kettlebell for, and he's all in. He's like, all right, he does. So I said, we've got a spare bedroom. I want to turn it into a place where maybe I could do demonstrations and help people
Yes.
who are trying to get down and up, or, need to be in a seated position. And I was all set to set up our whole spare bedroom in that manner. And then we had a change in family staying with us. And so then that kind of got switched to being their bedroom. So I am hopeful that eventually I'll be able to get my massage table back out and do some videos. Yeah, like a little in-house studio.
Yeah, you need your own little studio. I never would have thought I would have wanted that, because I always worked out at a gym or whatever. But now it's like our living room or our den is like, okay, we have the rowing machine and the back machine and the rebounder. And I'm like, we need
if I turn my camera around, that's what you're going to see. There's my bike, there's my plyo box. I even said to my husband, I can make a slip cover for the plyo box that will look like an ottoman.
Yeah, it'll be perfect. It'll double. Yeah, I love it. So, let's do this. Once you were diagnosed with lipedema, how did that make you feel?
I think like everybody, initially you're really excited to have a name to put, and you stop feeling insane because your whole life, something is different. You see what you're doing, what your siblings are doing, what your friends are doing, and it's the same thing, but you don't look like your friends. You don't move like your friends. And so for me, my whole life, I'm even like, I remember being in college and I just got really into walking in college and would put headphones on and walk in the neighborhood. And I was just like walking all the time. And my upper body was a size 4 and my lower body was a 12. And it literally looked like two separate people's halves were stuck. And so many people experience that, it's like, my head looked ginormous on my body. It was like, I saw a picture of myself and they're like, oh, you look so good. I'm like, oh my God, my head looks like a hot air balloon. Like my head looks so large on my little tiny frame. And I'm like, there's something like weird with this. Like, I can't buy a dress. I have to get a skirt in one size and a top in a smaller size. Or, I'm the queen of putting elastic bands in the back of my pants, so they would, come in like, a foot. You look at the difference from your hip to your waist ratio and it doesn't make sense. Like, I don't understand why people aren't walking into the doctor and the doctor going, what is wrong with your body? Like it doesn't compute when you're dealing with that. And you don't see it on other people around you.
Right.
At least I didn't, and so for me, when she's like, oh, you have lipedema, I'm like, what is that? And she's like, yeah, oh, this isn't, this is because you have this different type of fat in your body. And it doesn't respond to the typical diet and exercise like regular fat would. And I was like, oh my God, thank God. And then you find out there's not really much they can do for you.
Right. How old were you when you found out?
I was, let's see, my daughter was, oh God, you're asking me math questions. I think I was like 38.
Now
I got to figure it out.
No, you're fine. I'm just curious because, so many times women get diagnosed so much later.
Yeah.
And like me, and I wish I would have known this in my 20s. I could have, and I think, and you probably could say the same. I think working out in my 20s, because I worked out all the time, probably kept it from getting worse faster.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. What would you say to someone who says they're just having a hard time finding something that can help them?
Oh, it is hard, and the other part that makes that really challenging is we all have lipedema, but we don't present in the same manner. We don't respond in the same manner. I'm trying to remember who said it. It's like we're all in the same storm, but we have different boats.
That's
I
true.
loved that. I was like, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And so it really does become about investing the time to learn about yourself. Like,
Yeah.
I'm so grateful now for lipedema because I can guarantee I would not have known as much about my body as I do today if I
Right.
didn't have this condition. Like, I
Right.
know what foods cause me not to feel good. I know what workouts are going to cause me to need extra recovery days. I know what, things to do with my body with as far as like dry brushing or certain lotions or different things that may work really well for some people may not work for me. And it has been a decade of trial and error and finding what it is that works. And for me, one of the most important things has been compression. But
Yeah.
that for a lot of people is too challenging. Like, they can't find the compression that fits, they can't get it on by themselves, so it really is okay to be frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if you're trying something and you're so frustrated that you, the thing that I think we don't talk a lot about is the stress level and how the
Yeah.
stress itself can cause you to have symptoms spike. Like, for me, that's one of my biggest spikes is if I'm stressed, if anything's going on, my legs will just blow up. They will,
Yeah.
inflammation will go crazy. And so I've really had to kind of develop the mental health side and what can I do for my mental health. So if something is not working for you, first of all, don't blame yourself. Just
Right.
because it's working for other people doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And it's not because you're not trying hard enough or you're not doing it right or you've got to do it in this order or that order. Your body is going to respond differently. And I think it's hard when you see some people doing really well with something and they have lipedema and you're like, well, that's the answer. Let me go do that. That was a big thing with keto. When keto came out, a lot of people started doing really well with keto and really having an impact in changing their bodies. And I did keto. I'd been doing keto before I knew it was keto. I
Yeah.
just knew what foods made me feel better when I ate them. And I didn't have that same response. Like, I didn't have that same response. I feel better when I have low carb and that's what I do.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to not blame yourself when you see the success somebody else may be having, and then you're like, but it's not working for me. So I must be the problem. You're not the
Right.
problem. Your
Right.
body isn't functioning like their body is.
And it's okay if what works for somebody else doesn't work for you. Find what works for you. I can agree. I hear a lot of people in the lipedema world love keto. I personally can't do it. It affects my body in a negative way and I can't do it. So I'm like you, more low carb. I, did anti-inflammatory for a long time, and you just
Yeah.
have to do what works for you. And don't feel like if you're hearing all of these things, once you get in this world and you discover people who have it and you hear all the things, you want to try them all at once, but
Yes.
don't stress yourself out feeling like you have to try all the things at once, because like you said, stress can spike your inflammation and make you feel worse. I
And
can
there's
agree.
so many things to try, there's so many
Oh
other
my
things. So
gosh.
put that one aside and try the next one, and I kind of try to gravitate towards things that I feel I can, add to my schedule because
Yes.
it can be very time consuming to do all the things that we want to do for our bodies. And
Yeah.
then when you have like, you know, 10 or 12 things that you do on a regular basis, you're afraid to let one go to try something new because you're like, well, what if that's the thing
Right.
that's holding me all together? So
Yeah.
it really becomes about giving yourself, the okay to say, I'm going to just put that aside for now. It doesn't mean I'm going to stop doing it forever, but for right now, I'm just going to put that aside because I want to see if this other thing will help
Right.
me.
And sometimes if you do too many things at once, you don't know which one's helping. So
Exactly.
it's better to do one thing at a time. Now that I know you've tried so many things. Do you have a top 2 or 3 things that you're like, I cannot make it through the day without doing these things?
Compression is definitely, like, when I wake up in the morning, my go-to is vibration plate and moisturizing my skin and compression. Those are the first things I do. And then moving my body as much as I can is really key. I am somebody who works from home, and so making sure I'm getting up away from I am so prone to just sit there and work, and I tune the whole house around me is just gone, and I'm just working away, and before I know it, I'm supposed to be done working at 3 o'clock and it's 6 o'clock and I'm still working because I'm so in the groove of, and I'm like, nope. So I started setting, I had like a Fitbit watch, and I would set an alarm to go off every hour. So it would vibrate on my
Yeah.
wrist, and I would just get up. And this is when I was working in the office, and I would, do laps around the building, or we had crazy flights of stairs. I would go up one side and down the other side and do that a couple of times. And just, even if it's for, one song, just get up and dance for a song, or sit in your chair and, move your upper body for a song. For me, if I don't move and then I go to move, it can be really, really painful.
Yeah. And I know when I'm not moving, sometimes I have worse pain, like in my lower back, if I'm not doing something. Like
Absolutely.
for me, one of those things is the vibration plate. Like I have to use that because with a knee injury, I couldn't go run and dance and trampoline and all the things I
Yep.
used to do.
Yep.
So that's something that I need is the movement in my legs. And so I can sit at my desk while I'm working and do it multiple times a day. And that's helped me with strength also, like
Yep.
building the strength in my legs. And so just trying something. I remember when I first heard at FDRS this year, you talking about the triathlon, which this was the first year I'd heard about it. And I was so bummed thinking, no, because I had torn my meniscus and it was displaced and I was on a walker and all the things. I'm like, how can I do this? Like, I want to do it so bad. But then I just made up my mind. I was like, it's okay if I can't do it right now, but now I can work on strength training because I am determined to do it for your 10-year next year.
Yay. And our motto is all or something. So
Yes.
it's so modifiable. Like, people hear triathlon and they tune out because it's not on their radar. It's not something they think they've ever wanted to do, nor, wish to do, put their bodies through. And I hear that a lot. And it really became about, I wanted to create an event that could be a lipedema awareness event.
Yeah.
So it was spreading awareness for lipedema. But my key thing has always been about staying active, because I wish I never listened to
Yeah.
that being active could make you worse, because I probably would have just started going back to the gym, after my daughter was born. And I would have went, if I wouldn't have known, if that wouldn't have happened to my legs, I would have just kept going like I was going, because I was a larger person, but I could do all the things I wanted to do. I didn't have any limitations. I was walking, I was playing boomerang in the park with my husband. I mean, we just did all kinds of things. And so that was a big thing I wanted to make sure that I would relay. And that's why Lipedema Fitness even got started, because of the importance of staying active. And thankfully, that's really changed a lot. But there are still people that come into the group who are being told that it's not good for you. And so it's like, really?
I understand that.
Yeah. But I was like, all right, I'm going to do a 5K. I want to do a 5K. And I had done a virtual 5K. I'd never heard of a virtual 5K before. And I had done one the year before for lymphedema awareness. And I'm like, oh, let's make one for lipedema.
Yeah.
And then I have all these, the pool is such a big part of our workouts, because it's so gentle on bodies that are in pain, like a lot of lipedema people are. The water acts like natural compression. So it's a win-win. You don't have to be in your compression. It's the only place outside of sleeping that I don't have compression on is the pool. So for me, it's like heaven to go to the pool. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
was like, walking and the pool just naturally got me to, a triathlon.
Yeah. And the
And people
pool,
do
like,
just,
go ahead.
and people can do just the pool or just the bike or just the walk, whatever you want to participate in is what we want you to do. Like we
Yeah.
have people who take the whole month of June. Like I have people in my group right now. Hey, I just did 5 miles on my bike, and the whole distance is 12.4 miles for a 20K bike ride. That's the bike portion, and they do it throughout the month and build up to the distance. So
Mhm.
I love that, and they're rocking their Lipedema Fitness shirts in their gyms. And I'm like,
Yeah.
just think about all that awareness that's happening. Like it's like so crazy to me that this has been happening for 9 years.
Yeah, because if you have something about, I have one that's like Lippy and Beautiful and some different ones, people will ask you, what is that? And
Yeah.
there's a perfect opener to be able to talk to women about it, because a lot of women who don't know, they're not going to come up and ask you why your legs are like they are. And then for you too, it's hard to go up to a stranger and say, oh my gosh, I think you have this. um
Yeah.
you know, but so it can be an icebreaker, I know. And the community too, I love the community. I remember when I first got diagnosed, just feeling so almost free of not feeling like it's all my fault anymore. And then going to FDRS and finding this community, I was so thankful to hear from women that know what you mean when you say you're in pain or you whatever, all the things, for them to be able to relate and you go, wow, this is
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, it's so amazing. So if somebody is listening to this, I know your triathlon this year is in just a couple of days when we're recording this, but if they hear this and go, oh my gosh, I want to get involved in your community, how do they find out about your community?
I am Lipedema Fitness across all social media. So there's Instagram is probably the easiest place to find me. It's a public page. Anybody can find it. I share workouts that I do. I share any upcoming events. We do lots of lives with various people that are shared there. Facebook has a closed group for people with lipedema only. That's a little harder to find, and you have to be qualified to join. Like we don't let medical professionals even in there. It's just for patients.
Mm.
So patients have a place to go just for them. And then we
Yeah.
have a public lipedema fitness page on Facebook as well. I had done a conference with Juzo. Juzo put on a power symposium one year, and I was a brand ambassador. They wanted to help spread awareness during the triathlon. And so they asked me and a couple of lymphedema patients who are also brand ambassadors to come on and kind of talk about what it's like to live with them with lymphedema and me with lipedema to their attendees. And their attendees were all medical professionals and fitters for compression. And one of the people who was there before us presenting was Dr. Gallagher. And she asked the question before we even went up, who here knows what lymphedema is? And everybody in the room raised their hands. And she said, who here knows what lipedema is? And including herself and me, there were 5 of us.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was just like, I'm looking around like, what? And so after that conference, so many of them were trying to join the private group. And I'm like, oh, I got to do something, because I don't want to tell them no. I
Right.
want them to be interested. I want to help spread awareness there. So I'm like, I'm just going to start a public page so that anybody can go there.
Yeah.
And so I did that.
Yeah, I think it's important, and I think that can help your mental health, is being a part of a community where you can go and reach out and then find your little tribe of people, of women that can, you can cry on each other's shoulder, you can lift each other up, you can encourage each other to keep going, because it's a daily thing we have to live with. It's not going anywhere. So we just have to make the best of it. So as we're closing this out and somebody is maybe just learning for the first time that they have this and they feel overwhelmed and discouraged, what is a positive thing that's happened in your life? I know you touched on that a little while ago. Something positive that's happened because you have lipedema.
The friends, the community. I get really choked up when I think about, if I didn't have this condition, I wouldn't know these women who have just become such dear people to me. Like going to FDRS, which is the Fat Disorders Resource Society, if you're unfamiliar with that, they have an annual conference. And in 2013 or 14 was my first year. And I was presenting with my husband, who's my coach. All my videos that I share, it's always his voice talking us through what we're doing and why we're doing it, to try to explain why I'm training in the manner that I am and how I have to modify things because of the shape of my body or the heaviness or the difficulty kneeling. And so we were there, and the second I walked in to the hotel lobby, I was like, oh, it was like I was starstruck, and there was Nancy. And, I had seen Nancy online, for a couple of years, and oh my God, there's Polly. And, it's just like all these things. And then you like walk into a room with 100 or more women that look like you.
Yep.
And I'm going to tell you, if you have the chance to do it in person, to please try to find a way to make it happen, because it becomes a safe zone. Like that whole time you're there, all your defenses kind of melt away, because you're literally walking throughout this hotel and it's all full of people that are there for the lipedema conference. So you're literally walking down the hall seeing lipedema people. You happen to be right next to somebody. You get on the elevator, it's lipedema ladies. You get down to dinner and everybody's, talking about, oh, we need chairs without arms. And every little thing just adds, you just have never felt so free, especially in our society. Like I remember leaving and, this was 2 years ago at that conference. I really connected again with everybody. It'd been a while since I'd been to one. And as we were leaving, we drove. And that very first rest stop, as I was walking into the restroom, all those barriers we put up around ourselves to live in our world because of the shame and the looks and the comments that we get, you just build barriers up around you in your everyday life. And when you're at the conference, they're gone. Like it's amazing. And to have somebody like see you, like really understand what you're sharing and get it's priceless. It's amazing. And I'm incredibly grateful. Here I go again. Hi, my name is Pattie. I'm very grateful for the lipedema because it gives me such good friends. But it's yeah, like it's just crazy. And this year I did virtual for the first time, and I got to see you and chat with you, and I'm like, oh, she's so nice. And and Michelle I had met the year before at the in-person conference, and she pretty much saved my life. I got motion sickness in the pool. Like the conference was over and some of us stayed a couple extra days to decompress and make it not so hard to go back into the real world. And we were all meeting in the pool, and I had been in there for like 2+ hours or something. And I started getting motion sickness because of all the fluid in my body. Like that's a whole other conversation. I had a crazy experience at the sea one year, like not so good. But she's like, you're looking kind of green. And I'm like, I don't feel so good. And she literally got me out of the pool and, got me to the chaise lounges that are in the pool area, and then walked me to my hotel, the hotel room, and she was so kind and sweet, and she'll forever be the woman who saved me in the pool as far as my family's concerned. And just that's the level of people. They've been through it. They're super kind, they're super understanding. And I'm so grateful. And she reached out to me and said, hey, do you want to be on her podcast? I'm like, yeah.
That's awesome. I'm hoping so much that I can go next year. because my husband and I were going to go together this year. And I just had this gut feeling I wasn't supposed to be there in person because it's not that far of a drive for us, maybe 6 hours. And so we didn't go. So if you cannot go, attend virtually because it's worth it. And so this was my first year to attend. And I had done research for 3 years by myself. I didn't know anybody in the lipedema world before this conference. And so even though I knew what I had and I was learning on my own, you still feel alone because you don't have all those other women. And so I remember going virtually and just being overwhelmed with feeling like, oh my gosh, this woman looks like me, or she has the same, whatever, the same legs as me, or she understands, or whatever. So I have met some amazing women and friends through the virtual conference. So don't be afraid to do that either if you physically cannot get there, because you can still make connections and build lasting relationships with people. And it's worth it to get you through your journey. And most of us have supportive families. I have a super supportive husband, but there's nothing like connecting with somebody who also has it. It's different.
Yeah. And this year we did something really fun. Going to St. Louis from New York wasn't ideal for me with the place I was at after menopause. I got, progressively worse.
Right.
And I wasn't able to put my body through that trip because I'd done Atlanta the year before and it about killed me.
Yeah.
Another long story. But me and another lipedema friend who happens to live in Massachusetts and I live in New York, we said, what's the halfway point between us? We rented a hotel room and we watched together in her room. She had a single. My husband came and was out mountain biking, and we would get together every morning and watch all day long together. And it's just really cool. Like we called it a watch party. And I'm like, we invited anybody who was in the area who wanted to come could have come. And so we may do that again if it's in another location that I can't get to. Because going, and then it's like, oh, you want to go to dinner? Okay. And then you meet in the hotel, restaurant, and it's just really connecting, and it's fantastic.
Yes. Can you imagine how many women who can't physically go could get together if they could drive an hour and connect or whatever and do what you did? I think there's going to be a lot more people trying to mimic that watch party. And I think it'll be a good thing because then you still feel like you're being involved.
Yep. 100%. And if you have any questions, just ask us. We'll tell you what we did.
Yeah, absolutely. Pattie, this has been so much fun. Thank you for sharing your story. I am super appreciative of you and the journey you're doing. And I love the platform you're on, helping people with movement. That is, it seems like all of us are kind of in different areas. Like I'm passionate about people sharing their stories because I think stories are powerful, and I think it can help give other people hope and make them feel like they're not alone. And you with Lipedema Fitness and movement, I think that is equally as important. I think it takes all of us. So don't feel intimidated if you feel like you're out here in the world all by yourself, but you want to do something for lipedema, do it.
Yeah. And there's crafty corners, there's, food-based corners. There's so many avenues. If you go to Facebook and you type in lipedema and whatever you're interested in, I guarantee you'll find a group, or you'll find posts, or you'll find something that kind of draws you together,
Yeah.
It's really welcoming.
It is very welcoming. Do you have any final thoughts for our listeners? We covered all.
Thank you. It's the thing with Lipedema Awareness Month is by the end of it, you just feel a little worn out, overwhelmed, overstimulated, so we even try to do some fun things about what do you do just for you that has nothing to do with treating your lipedema, because we have all become so familiar with self-care as it relates to our condition that we don't talk about painting your nails or doing other.
Okay, here's a great last question. Who is Pattie without the lipedema label?
Pattie loves fashion and art and dancing and laughing
Yeah.
and spending time with my family. And yeah, I mean, that's probably a good place to start, you know.
I love
I
it.
love clouds. I take pictures like a fiend. If I'm
Yeah.
outside and walking, I'll see a ladybug and I'll be on the ground with my camera in the ladybug's face, and my husband will be like, I thought we were going for a walk.
We
So
are.
I'm a bit of like the dog with the squirrel. Like I
Yeah.
get distracted and drawn by colors or smells, or, oh my God, look at the sun. He'd be like, I'm driving. So
I know.
yeah,
Me too.
I love photography.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think we were cut from the same cloth and we just didn't know it, Patty.
Yep.
We
Yep.
like a lot of the same things. And it's good to do that because it's so easy to just always focus on the lipedema and you kind of forget yourself and what you loved before
Yeah.
you found out. And it's important to still do all those things you loved, whether it's crafts or dancing or whatever it is, do it.
Yeah.
Because you never know. You never know. Don't lose yourself. But
Don't lose yourself in lipedema.
don't
right?
lose yourself in lipedema. That's right. Patty, thank you so much. I appreciate
My
you.
pleasure.
All right. Great
I
talking with
appreciate
you.
you.
Everyone,
Me
thank
too.
you so much. We will be back next week with another guest.
We hope you enjoyed that podcast. Content on this podcast is for educational purposes only, is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. To learn more about the podcast, visit the website lippychalisa.com or email Sarah at lippychalisa@gmail.com. She is also a certified life coach and financial coach. For a free consultation, visit the website jacksonlifecoach.com or email her at jacksonlifecoach@gmail.com.